Hello and welcome to Geek It Plays Epic Landscape Tutorials. This is episode number 14 in the series and it's called Forest Road. And let's begin by positioning our camera. And there's lots of ways you can do the camera. You can do just an overview, but for this one we want to be right in the forest, so we're going to have tall trees up in the front towards the foreground and we're going to be right inside of it. And we want to change the shape of our main screen, so let's click on Render to Screen and use a user-defined aspect ratio. We're going to change it to 320 by 480, okay? And you can see how tall it looks. Also, when you click on the camera, you'll notice the focal is set to 35mm, and we're going to leave it 35 for now. It's a wide angle, and we're going to see if we want to modify it in the future. Let's begin setting up our scene by creating our first normal terrain. We'll zoom out. I'm going to resize this, and notice when you use the corners it increases the terrain uniformly, and if you use the side ones it will stretch the terrain and make a different shape. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, now let's right click and edit object, and we're going to reset our terrain so that we'll have a nice blank empty terrain to work with. Okay. Let's go to our paint and let's set the size to about here, softness to maximum, and flow to about half. And let's click on raise, and we're just going to make some nice little dots all over the place. Some interesting points here. And I'll show you what we're going to do with these in just a second. Just go ahead and put them all over. Okay, and let's go to effects, and we're going to just click on stones several times, and you'll notice how the stones are laying on top of the points. Okay, and we probably want to just add some more stones, and it just builds up. Okay, and you can see the kind of terrain it's creating. It's very interesting. We also want to increase the resolution quite a bit. Let's increase it to 2048 by 2048, and the reason is because we stretch it a lot and it'll look a little bit nice. Next, let's go to our paint tab and let's select altitude, and we're going to use the little dropper to select just a little bit below the top. Or we can also set it this way and maybe just set it to 1. Let's also increase the size of our brush. And we just want to decrease the overall altitude right here in the middle. And we're making it look like a path cutting through a forest. Okay, so we'll have a slightly lower altitude through here. There we go. Okay. Okay, and we've accomplished our first task of setting a terrain. Let's go ahead and zoom in, and we're going to create our trees and forest and our interesting points. So let's right click and select a tree, and we want to select a tree with interesting bark. However, these trees by default come with a low resolution, but we can add a tree and then apply our own high resolution materials to it. I highly recommend that you build up your library with a lot of different types of trees. When I go to Cornucopia to purchase these, I purchase different varieties on purpose with a lot of different branches, textures, and looks, so I can modify them and it'll give me a lot more options. This allows me to be more creative. We're going to select this old dead leafless tree, okay? And it's taking a little bit of time to grow this tree. Okay, and now let's go ahead and move our tree closer to the camera and zoom in on it so we can put it near the foreground. So let's move the camera about here, select the tree, and move the tree right up near the camera. Maybe we want to increase the size. Okay, let's rotate it around. Okay, something like this. And let's look in our camera settings. And our camera is set right now at 1.6 meters, and that's probably about the view of a person. But we want to create a much taller look to our tree. But before we worry about that, let's go ahead to our tree and bring it very close so we can see the bark. And let's render it. So you can see this bark and how it doesn't look that great close up. It looks a bit pixelated and not very good. So let's go ahead and delete this tree for now. And let's do an example of this large dead tree. And let's take a look at the bark. So let's bring it right to the front of the camera. And we're going to apply our own material to this bark. And let's use wood. It's actually from our mega pack that you can purchase at EL1. And one thing we want to show you about it, let's go in here and set our scale to 20. Okay, render that. And if it's based on the image, it'll be a lot nicer. And with other types of mapping, you're going to have problems like this, where it's stretching and applying to it. So it's kind of hard to find a good tree with a nice bark up front. So you can see how very important it is to purchase other materials and trees and build your library up. So let's go back now and delete the tree, and let's select our leafless tree we had before. And let's click OK, and we'll just wait for that tree to grow. Okay, double click on our tree, and we want to increase the polygons because this tree will be a close-up. And let's increase the length and click on the trunk and increase the length of the trunk. And let's increase the gnarl and the diameter of the whole tree. Okay? So here is our really interesting looking tree, and we want this tree to be a little bit in the background. So let's drop the tree down to the ground, and we'll just move it right about here. Okay, so this will be our background kind of tree. Let's click to create another tree. We'll wait for it. Okay, here it is. And this time we're going to increase the size, move it closer to the camera, and this is our tall tree. Forest started. And let's create another tree. And at this point you can actually use an ecosystem brush, or if you like to have control a little bit more of how the trees are going to look, you can just place them by hand like we're doing here. And the reason I've chosen to place them by hand this time is because they're actually going to be one of the major points of interest in this scene. So we want to have a little bit more control over what the tree is going to look like. And the placement of these trees is pretty important as we're trying to create a path through the forest. It looks like we're about to enter into a deep forest. So I'll just put it right here. Let's create another tree. And as I finish placing these trees, I'd like to just remind you to come and visit us on the web and take advantage of our forum and post some of your work if you like. Now we have kind of a nice archway going into our forest with this tree here. Okay? Just a few more placement adjustments here. There we go. Now let's preview what we have so far. And you see that we already have a very interesting, inviting path going in the forest. Next, let's change our attention to the background right through here. And we're just going to add a normal terrain and resize it. Stretch it out. Actually, you know what, let's delete that one and let's add a fractal terrain. And I'll show you in a second the reason why. We'll just extend this terrain and make it bigger. Right click and edit object, and let's zero out the edges. Okay? And let's rotate the terrain forward and place it about here, like this. So let's preview that. So in a way you can pre-build a forest in the background here just from adding a terrain. And if this one's too flat for you, we'll just delete that and add another fractal terrain. And we'll just use the corners to stretch it this time rather than stretching it in the middle, and that will increase the whole thing, including the height. Okay. We'll go to Edit Object and zero out the edges, okay? And then tilt this one up just like we did the other one. And if we just rotate it right, you can see right here we'll have a nice shape to our mountains. Let's just stretch this out a bit more. Let's raise this up and rotate it forward a little bit more. Okay. Like that. And let's preview this. And you can see how easy it is to create a background forest just using this fractal terrain. Let's go ahead and put it further away and add some haze in a minute. Okay. And this is a nice little technique you can use quite often. Let's go ahead and add some material to it. Let's go to Landscapes. And we'll select something like Vegetation, or actually let's use Rock and Grass. Let's preview it. Okay, and even though we used grass and rock, this looks like a nice green lush forest with trees. Okay, next we're going to add some greener trees here. These forests aren't made of all one kind of tree. So we're going to choose the bulky conifer, and you can use almost any tree that you like at this point. It's just taking a second to grow our tree. And when you use higher polygons, these look a lot nicer close up. Okay, let's add one more. Let's place it over here. And you'll notice at some point, because we have higher polygons, it's not going to render as... I'm going to create one more and put it right here in the front. And we just want to make a slight green area here. So let's shrink this down. It's a little bit big for our needs. Just place it maybe something like this. Okay, that's good. We're also going to probably put a dead tree around here somewhere and make it look a little more interesting in our pathway. And now let's select our maple tree. We'll put it back here. And let's create another one and make it really big. I'll just move it over here, and we'll move it up, and we're going to rotate it slightly and move it up. And this will provide us with a nice dark shadow on our pathway here. Let's preview what we have so far. And you can see how it's already creating some nice shadows, and we're going to add one over here. And we'll populate some more trees over in this area here. That'll give us a deeper forest feel. So let's add another tree for a shadow. I'll make it big and move it to the left and rotate it over, and it'll cast a nice big shadow. Okay, there we go. And we'll add some trees to our sides here. Maple tree here, and another one over here. Give us another shadow. We'll just keep moving in our trees until we get a nice deep forest feeling. Maybe some small trees back here. let's just keep placing them until you feel like you have what you want in your thumbnail. Let's preview it. And it's starting to look a lot better. We have our nice pathway here, but I think we need something right through here. Okay. Let's add some trees right here. Let's preview that and see if that helps. I think we're starting to have a lot more interest in our scene, and maybe we still need something here on this hill over here. So this is where we're going to put some trees. Here. We'll just populate this area. Some larger trees. And this will just give a more interesting, darker feel and look to our pathway. Preview what we have. Let's wait for that to render. And I think we've done a really nice job setting our trees, and they're all preset nicely. Let's add some magic now. Let's go to our terrain, and we're going to add some material to it. And let's use, let's go to rocks, and we're going to select old rock. And double click here, and let's set the mapping to object standard. And we want to decrease the scale quite a bit, so we want a lot smaller detail. Okay, click OK, and let's render. And you can see what we added to our pathway here. And next, let's go ahead and work on our atmosphere. So this is our sun, and we're going to actually bring it up a little bit. Let's see what it will do if we just move it to the front here. Okay, that gives us a little bit less, so let's put it up here, maybe a little bit behind. Okay, let's go to our atmosphere editor. And there's a couple things we want to do. We want to enable the God rays. Let's increase our haze ground density and our fog ground density, decrease the glow intensity. And let's go to our light tab, and we'll increase the intensity of light, and we'll put our light balance more to the ambient side. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, right there. And you'll notice that our ambient light is a little bit dark. Okay, let's preview that. And you'll notice because of the detail, it's taking a little bit longer to render. And I think it looks a little bit empty right around in this area. So we're going to add something. But the atmosphere, I think, is looking very good. We'll probably want to make it a little bit darker. So let's go to this guy, and we'll just increase the decay amount a little bit. Make it a little more yellowish. Increase the fog. And haze a little. And the lighting, let's decrease the brightness a little bit and give it more sunlight. And you can actually drag this over and increase the size if you want to preview this. It doesn't give you the best preview, but it does give you some idea of the colors and placement of things. Okay. And we can also select our overall sky color by editing it. And let's switch it to this darker blue here. Okay. That'll give us a darker blue, or let's select a lighter blue. Okay. And we're just going to play this with this till we get the right color. Now let's select our terrain, and we're going to add an ecosystem, and let's add plants. And let's choose grasses, and this is my own modification. I based it on this long grass. I just made it a little straighter and changed the color. Okay. And this will provide a little bit of a fall look. Okay. Let's go to our scaling and scale it down a little bit and populate. We probably want to increase the density a little bit. Okay. And let's also select a variable color and just add a couple more colors to our color map. And something like this. Okay. And let's edit our function, and we're going to add a noise node and scale it down. Okay. Let's populate. And we still need to increase our density. Populate again. Let's preview, because you can't see very well in the thumbnail. And it's a little bit too small still, so it doesn't give it a nice effect that we're going for. Let's increase the density and disable the decay and increase the scaling. Looks better. Let's decrease the scaling a little bit and repopulate. Let's preview this now. And it's looking nice and interesting. We need to add maybe a little bit more of a path through here. And to achieve this, we're going to apply a map, or we can actually do it in an easy way. So what we're going to do now is create another layer, and we'll take our trees and we're going to move them all to the new layer. And I want to make this layer invisible to us for a minute so they won't be in our way when we're working on the path. And now we're going to open our new material. Oops, that's the wrong one. Let's go to our terrain, open material, click on paint. Let's click on paint. We'll just move this one out of the way so we can work with just this. Let's zoom out here, and here's a little trick for you. You just click on the eraser, and right here we're just going to just start erasing this area right here. And that's going to decrease the number of instances there are and let it render a lot quicker. It won't affect our scene because it's not within the camera's view. It just helps us render it faster, getting rid of the polygons. Okay. There you go. let's click on our airbrush style. And this is our flow. We're going to decrease it and make it slower. And we want to decrease the radius of the brush. Maybe like this. Let's zoom in. There we go. And just start clicking to delete some of that pathway. Okay, and we can see how we're already reducing the amount right here where our path starts. And we're going to go back again and just do a little bit more. And you can see how they're slightly disappearing as we're erasing them. And we just have a little bit more of a path. Let's click OK, and let's preview this one more time. And here in our preview you can see we've already created a little path right here. There's a couple things we can do to enhance this picture. It's already really hard to render, but it's looking really nice. To enhance, let's see how it will look if we add a light. We're just going to put it right above the front here. And here's how you can enable view through this. So if you select that, you can kind of preview what you're doing. We're just going to tilt the light. Okay. And set it slightly back. And let's click to change it to volumetric light. Strengthen it a little bit. Okay, let's edit the color. Let's make it slightly blue, like a dirty blue. And let's go to Edit Gel, Light Gels, and let's use the Spotted Gel. And also, we're going to go to the volumetric and enable the smoke. Let's leave the default settings. Okay. Let's just adjust this light a little bit more. And we're going to spread it, maybe put it to 30 degrees. Okay. And you'll notice in this picture how it's changing things. And the only way to get it just right is to just try some different things and see how it changes it. So it's just repositioning until you find the best look. Let's preview this, and it's not to say that we'll like this. We might even remove the light. I kind of don't like this. It kind of wipes out a little bit too much. So let's just go ahead and delete the light. It doesn't really work. I think our original picture was much nicer. Let's set our final render options. Let's click Final and 400 by 600. And Superior would be much better quality, but let's see our final work now. And so here we have our final rendering with a nice forest with a pathway going through it with some nice grass. And you can play and add more details and maybe put some branches in and spend some more time. And the more time you spend, the greater the result you will have in the end. But this is very nice for you to start experimenting with the trees and building a road in the forest. And thank you for watching this tutorial by Geek It Play Studios. Please come and visit us on the web at www.geekitplay.com.